Welcome to A Sex Worker's Guide to the Galaxy, where oftentimes the unexpected happens. So today, I didn't interview anyone. In fact, I am just sharing with you the fact that I was on another podcast and I got interviewed. The tables have turned. And it was really, I was nervous. To be on the other side of an interview. So it makes me appreciate everyone who comes on this show that much more. I was on the Full Service podcast with Tank Smith, a comedian out of Florida, and it was great. It was so much fun. It turns out when you get interviewed by a comedian, you just laugh a lot, and it was a joy. So I'm excited to share this episode with you. Go check out Tank's podcast, and I hope you enjoy it.
Welcome back, listeners. It's Tank Smith. I'm so excited for today's episode. My guest is a Detroit-based sex worker, artist, activist. She is the host of the podcast, A Sex Worker's Guide to the Galaxy, Parker Westwood. Parker, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Tank. This is really great.
Heck yeah.
It's nice to have the table turned.
I'm so excited. Hell yeah. Listeners, I'm in Atlanta currently. Parker, where are you joining us from?
I'm currently in Detroit, Michigan.
I was trying to find out a little bit about the city that my guest is from. How do you like Detroit?
I love Detroit. I moved here because of a relationship about 8 years ago, and that relationship ended about 2 years in, but I fell in love with Detroit, and I've just stuck around. I did not plan to stay here. But the food scene, the art scene, just the people here are so... I think Detroit gets a bad rep, right? People think it's like a hard city, but the people here have just been so warm and kind the entire time I've been here. There's no city like it, in my opinion.
That's awesome. Yeah, like everybody, I feel like when you think of like, well, at least a lot of people, I feel like when they're like Detroit, they're like 8 Mile, and that's it. And like GM, that's what I think of, like GM, and then like Eminem, really, and Big Sean.
Right. Right. And it's so much more than that. There's so much to do here, and it has such a rich history, not only with Motown, but like with a social justice history here. Like Grace Lee Boggs had a base here, and her husband did some incredible work. So there's a rich history here. Heck
yeah. If I'm coming to the city and I'm like, well, I want to see something cool, I want to do something fun, you got any like recommendations for somebody who's coming to Detroit the first time, what they should check out?
Oh my gosh, so many things. If you're more of like an outdoors kind of person, I would definitely hit up Belle Isle. It's really beautiful at sunrise, sunset. You can hop on your bike and bike around there and then come over to the east side of Detroit. And there's some beautiful restaurants over here. Okay. There's some really good small restaurants, not like chains or anything, but there's some really, really good like farm to table sort of restaurants in Detroit. And a lot of things are bikeable. Maybe listeners aren't bikers, but I certainly am. And then the Heidelberg Project it's an art installation that like spans blocks.
Hell yeah.
Really truly worth visiting, and always Eastern Market. It's one of the largest farmers markets in the country, I believe, and there are murals everywhere.
That's dope.
And they're stunning. Mm-hmm.
Hell yeah, we have like a section in Atlanta called Cabbage Town where they got like murals basically like all up and down the whole like neighborhood. It's pretty. I love like street art. Like I love like art in public. It really makes the city like you feel alive, you know.
Oh, truly. And I went to, all of my favorite places have incredible street art. Like I went to Prague once and just was drooling not actually drooling, but like internally drooling over all of the street art.
Yeah. I feel like it might be like Buenos Aires, or like there's a city in Argentina where they basically like outlawed like outdoor advertising. So the whole city, like instead of just having like billboards and just like ads, because like in America you're having ads constantly coming at you all the time, but they ban like
Mhm.
advertising in the city, and it's just like the whole city is just like full of street art. It's cool.
Oh, I love that. That's so dreamy.
Yeah. What's something you're passionate about?
Oh my gosh. So when you sent the questions, I read this one and was like, "Oh my god, how much time do we have?" I'm passionate about so many things, and I think the simple answer is that I'm passionate about people. I'm passionate about community. It makes this work just a joy for me. It's what drew me to organizing. But I think the part about I think people are so incredible, and I think part of what I love about the work that I get to do is that I get to see people have their like shame lifted for a moment because there's so much stigma around kinks and sex and money and like all of these things, and even in the social justice world there's like all this external shame, and a lot of the work that I do I've come to realize is revolves around this like moments I get to see people face their shame and move through it.
That's so powerful because it's like there's not many places like that happens to where you get to like witness somebody just like be so vulnerable and like yeah like take away that shame, and it's like that's just that's a dope moment that not many people get to see like in real time.
No, I mean, and it's there's no guarantee it happens, and I think it requires a lot of vulnerability on my part, on everybody's part, and everyone has to be like willing to go there. But when it happens, there's nothing more magical.
Yeah. I feel like yeah, that's like when you say you're passionate about people, it's because it's like everybody like has a story, and it's just like hey, all you got to do is tell it, and then like people are changed by just like talking. I feel like
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's, I mean, one of the reasons I was really excited to come on this podcast, and one of the reasons I started my own was because there's power in stories. I 100% believe that when we own our stories and tell our own stories and like face the parts that we might find unsavory, we we like own ourselves and become stronger and more confident as people.
yeah. And I feel like it just connects you to. I feel like it connects you to everybody else as well because you're telling this story, you have this experience, and there's other people that maybe they've never heard of somebody that's had an experience that they've had, and then you vocalizing it makes them feel like a little less alone or just like not weird or like just like oh connected to somebody else through this like shared experience, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and there's nothing more encouraging than seeing someone who shares maybe even just a piece of your story, owning it and being confident and talking about it. It's incredibly empowering.
Yeah, definitely. You're an artist, right?
Yeah, I've recently claimed that title. Yeah.
I claim the title of podcaster, and yeah, tell you what kind of art do you what kind of art do you do?
I do a lot of different kinds of art. I mean, I would consider the podcasting thing to be art. I I like to sing, I like to dance, but I've also done a lot of two-dimensional stuff. And I miss ceramics. I can't go to my studio because of COVID. It was a group studio, a collective sort of endeavor, and I miss that work. I really enjoyed ceramics.
Yeah, I was gonna
Um,
say, what's your? I guess I was gonna say either what's your favorite like I guess ceramic thing or like art that you've created, or what's the favorite go to karaoke song? Singer, you got that song, I know.
oh, I do. That's a great question. I My go-to karaoke song is Black Tongue by Yeah Yeah Yeahs
Okay,
because I just get to yell and feel really powerful and wonderful and channel Karen O, and that makes me really happy.
fuck yeah. My,
Yeah.
believe it or not, mine is Friends in Low Places. Garth Brooks.
Oh, yes. Oh, that's so good. I was just swooning over Garth Brooks yesterday because he's just adorable and was such a staple of my childhood.
I will say, yo, he killed that fucking Amazing Grace at the inauguration. I was,
Yeah, a friend of mine told me that he has performed at every inauguration except for Nixon and Trump,
Oh wow.
or Reagan and Trump, except for Reagan and Trump.
Holy shit. Yeah, he did really well. I was like, yeah, goddamn, Garth, fucking still doing it. Still
So
doing it.
yeah. I love that.
Hell yeah. Fun fact about Garth Brooks, his shit's not on Spotify. It's not he's one of the
What?
few artists where his stuff's like not on Spotify. It's his albums and stuff. I'm like, dude, hell yeah, bro.
That's fascinating. What if I'm very curious about this man. I feel like I need to do a little research.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a joke where I like basically get pulled over and I use a Garth Brooks CD to get out of like traffic stops and shit, or like as self protection from the cops. That's a fun one.
What, just as like an olive branch? Like I too like Garth Brooks.
Yeah, or like because it's like it's like I'm not trying to like you gotta like I feel like as a black person, the police, it's like it's a tense thing, and then when I get pulled over,
Right.
just pop in the Garth Brooks CD, and the cop like basically I sing a line from Friends in Low Places, blame it all on my roots, and then basically the cop is like I showed up in boots, and then we fucking duet the rest of the song, and then we like sing it out and shit, and
Can we please make this into a music video?
yeah.
This is magical.
It's my closer. It's my favorite joke. Unless it's a black cop, you don't want to do that. He might shoot you. He's like, this car's stolen. Oh boy. Heck yeah,
That's
Parker.
amazing.
I appreciate you coming on the podcast. This is fun.
Yeah, already we're like only a few minutes in, and this is great.
Hell yeah. Can you remember your first exposure to sex work at all?
I was thinking about this one. Yes. So well, when I was 6 years old, I think it was just on TV, and I watched the movie Striptease,
Okay.
which I haven't seen since. So I don't even know if it holds up or what entirely it's about, but I know that there's a stripper in it. And I think it's very problematic in the like save a hoe kind of way. Like not a very empowering sort of film, but I saw it and I was just like, I want to do that when I grow up. At like 6 years old, I announced to my mother that I wanted to be a stripper when I grew up.
How does she take it?
Um, she was just, I mean, I was 6 years
Oh
old,
yeah,
so
it's
she
like
was
any
just kind
kid
of like,
that's like 6 and they're like, I want to be a doctor. They're like, of course you do. Okay.
of course you do. Yeah. And I also told her like in the same year that I wanted to be an archaeologist, and I stand by those two things. Those still resonate in my soul.
Hell yeah.
Um, yeah. But I also remember when I was a little bit older seeing, I think it was some sort of documentary or TV special about high-end escorts, because I remember there was some sort of thing where they showed a website, someone's website, and they're basically the same as they are now. And I remember looking it up online. So I was old enough to like have an online presence, so probably like 12 or 14.
Okay.
And I remember just looking at someone's like gift or like wish list and being like, "Oh my god, they're getting like cars and things." And thinking to myself like, "I could do that." Like I find people attractive as their being and not like they're not necessarily their bodies. This is something I like, all bodies are great. I could totally do this. And that just kind of stuck in the back of my mind for a very long time.
How'd you end up getting into it? How'd you start? How'd you decide like, hey, I want to get into sex work. I want to do this.
Well, I started with stripping. That was like my first foray into any kind of sex work. And it found me, really. I knew I wanted to do it. I didn't really pursue it, but I was dancing. I went to college and I was dancing at an event, and this woman, or like another student who was a couple years older than me, came up to me and was like, "Hey, you need to teach me to dance like that." And I was just like, "Yeah, sure. Anytime. When do you want to do it?" And she's like, "Well, my audition is in like a week. So, do you want to come over this week? Actually, why don't you just come audition with me?" And I was like, "All right, yeah, sure. What are we auditioning for?" And it turned out to be a strip club about 45 minutes away from the college.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and so that's what, and I got in and he passed whatever sort of test they had for me, and it was wild. It was such an incredible experience, and I think there I learned a lot. I learned a lot stripping. I learned a lot about boundaries. I learned a lot about how all the isms of the world, like sexism, heterosexism, racism, capitalism, like all intersect there in such a visible way. It was a lot, and but I had fun. I love dancing, and I was in a lot of sociology classes, so I took it as kind of a research experiment, and it was really fun.
That's dope. How long did you
Yeah.
dance?
I danced for 3 years on and off through my college career, and then I danced for like a month when I moved to Detroit and just didn't really enjoy the scene here as much. And then that's when I danced for about a month after not dancing for some years. Didn't like it so much and knew someone who was getting into full service. Actually, my really really good friend Lena Cesura,
Okay.
and I basically was just kind of like, "Hi, how do I do it? How do I start?" And so she launched all of her stuff, and I was about 6 months behind, and so that was she really helped me get started, which I am so grateful for.
How did you? So you go from like you're like dancing at college. Like somebody's like, "Hey, will you go do this? You want to do this audition with me?" Are you like familiar with strip clubs? Had you like Are you like I guess not frequenting strip clubs because everyone in college, no one has money like that. But it's like, are you
Mhm.
familiar with strip club culture? Have you been in strip clubs like that? Do you have like a background of dance? How was that like going into dancing? How was that? I guess.
I have not. I don't have a background in dancing, I guess is what I'll say. I enjoy dancing. I always have danced. I did a little bit of dancing in middle school with like a troupe, I guess, but it was just like a weird little after school thing. And I wasn't good at choreography. I'm still working on that, to be honest. And I was so much better freestyling. And when I'd never been to a strip club, I was all of 19 when I walked into the club as for my audition. So, and in Wisconsin, which is where the clubs where I auditioned were, you can't, you have to be 21 to enter.
Oh, okay.
So you can be 18 and work there, but you have to be 21 to enter as a patron. And so I couldn't even have gone in as a patron if I wanted to, because I wasn't of age.
Yeah.
And but yes, I started at 19. I was so nervous. I was so scared. But I guess I this is a fun sex worky story. I my first day, I go and it's like an old single stage, single pole club, a little bit of a dive, and I have a sweet spot in my heart for these places. And that we had to play money off the jukebox. There wasn't a DJ.
Oh, wow.
There was no bouncer. And we like paid for our own music, selected the music, and then would go up on the stage. And it was my first night, my trial night, and they were like, you just dance tonight. We'll you keep whatever tips you make, but you don't get the base pay because at this point we got base pay. And I get up there like, you go first. So never having been in a strip club, never seeing anyone else go first, not knowing what the fuck I was doing, I went up first and did my thing, and it was fun. It was fine. I was shaking. I was scared, but it was fun. I just like did my thing, and
That's all. I feel like that's so hard to do. Like going first in so many things is like, especially like this is your first time in this strip club, you never danced before, and then they're like, "Hey, why don't you go first?" I feel like that'd be so hard to do.
oh yeah. And then I also didn't even really get a good feel for the club of like what kind of music does everyone like here. And so my queer ass was playing like Tegan and Sarah, and I'm pretty sure I played some Outcast. I don't even know. I was just like, I'm gonna play what I like, I guess.
That's dope.
Um
That's
yeah,
awesome.
it was a good time. It was a good time.
How was, I know you said your kind of friend kind of helped you get into like full service sex work, or like you knew her, she was doing it. How was the transition from like dancing to full service sex work? How was that?
It was an interesting transition. I think the hardest part or the biggest learning curve for me in that transition was learning how to get clients. I was just like, I don't understand. Like, if I'm not meeting them, if I'm not creating a connection, I'm having to create a connection via my website or my ad copy. And that was a challenge in at trying to portray my personality and and how other people perceive me and like I don't know, my charm, whatever charm I have,
Yeah.
trying to put that into text
That's right. I
was
feel like
a
writing
challenge.
about yourself is one of the hardest things to do, especially to make yourself like sound like amazing and awesome. Like, at least for me, writing about myself
Yeah,
is hard to do.
it is. It's writing about yourself, making yourself sound amazing and awesome and sexy and humble because you don't want to be like, thinking you're all that and a bag of chips kind of a person either, because that, at least for me, is a turn off. Yeah, it's really hard. It's a very underrated skill, I
Yeah.
think.
What did you like in full service sex work? Do you feel like there was like a waiver period when you like weren't good at it, or like a learning curve?
Yes, absolutely. And I think the not being good at it was that I was so paranoid. I was just so scared. I didn't it was really hard for me to connect with people, and that's the part that I love. Yeah, I was just always afraid that I wasn't what they wanted or I wasn't enough. And this like channels into my normal life too. I've actually grown, sex work has helped me grow in a lot of different arenas in my life, but in sex work, I think the biggest, yeah, the waiver part, the part where I was not good at it, was in the first 6 months for certain, where I wasn't confident in my boundaries and I wasn't allowing my honest self to show up.
Do you feel like that like once you were able to like I guess like let your like authentic self show, I guess, do you feel like people were more receptive to that in full service sex work?
Yes. Yeah, I think it's helped me to get more clients that I actually connect with, and the ones who don't like my authentic self don't come back, and that's great because we often just like didn't click, like it wasn't, I'm not for everybody. And like I think that's hard for me to swallow sometimes cuz I don't know, as a woman in this society, we're like trained to want to be appealing to everyone.
Yeah.
But the more I accept that like I'm not for everyone and the people that I am for are the ones that I like want, like, yeah, the people I enjoy spending time with and the people who enjoy spending time with me are the clients that I want. So,
Yeah. And it's
yeah.
nice that like people like you for you putting out like this authentic thing rather than being something else and people liking you for that thing that you're not really being, I guess. Authentic maybe.
Yeah, or like when they show up and they're just like, "Oh, you're you're really down to earth and I thought that you liked, I don't know, that you were something else." And it's like, "Yeah, no, this is what you get when you come see me."
I'm sorry, I'm so down to earth and cool.
My bad. I'm sorry.
Yeah. How was, I know you mentioned boundaries earlier. How was, I know like dancing in a strip club, boundaries are such a huge thing. How was, I guess, how did dancing influence full service sex work in terms of boundaries, I guess?
That's a good question. I think the way that dancing influenced boundaries for me, I think it was mostly just that it's the beginning of a journey. I think boundaries have being able to not only declare my boundaries but also hold them has been a journey in general. So when I was dancing, I certainly did some things that I was young and I did some things that made me uncomfortable. And I didn't really know that they were going to make me uncomfortable till I was in the position.
Yeah.
And I think as I've gotten older, and especially in in-person sex work and full service sex work, I've had to articulate my boundaries up front, and I've had to hold them in certain ways. I've even stopped seeing someone because they crossed a boundary in a way that like made me dread seeing them again.
Yeah.
And it was definitely based in like my own past trauma or like my own past experience. And it was like super regrettable, but I was like, I'm sorry, like this is where, and I did tell them, I told him that because I think it's important to communicate those things. I was like, it's really like this is the boundary that was crossed, and like I can't see you any longer. Um
That's good though for that
yeah.
client just to understand like, hey, when you cross this line, this is what happens. And so hopefully he'll fucking
Hmm.
respect that for the next person that he sees and doesn't he understands that this is the fucking line. You can't cross this. Or else, hey,
Oh yeah.
you can't see me ever again. Congrats.
Yeah, he had a whole that email had at least 2 or 3 paragraphs about consent in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
How do you go to strip clubs now? Do you go to strip clubs ever?
I mean, not with COVID being a thing. I've only gone a handful of times. My thing is that like I go there and then all I want to do is get on stage.
Yeah.
Um so I have a really hard time sitting still, and I have to like sit on my hands, and but I love when I have gone, I love it. It's so fun.
Yeah, I was gonna ask like, what's the experience going like after having worked in one, going back? How is it different being like a customer versus like dancing? But I definitely get like me going to like a stand up show and then I'll see it and I'm like, God damn, I wish I could get on stage right now. This crowd is so hot. I want to like do something, But it's
Yeah.
like I can't.
Exactly that. Yeah, it's just this, like, itching, like, "Oh my god, I wanna participate."
Yeah,
But I think that's me in everything, like, I'm the kind of person that likes to have a role in a situation. I'm not I'm a good audience member because I am very participatory.
nice.
Um, but I really like to I like to be part of the show.
Yeah, I feel you there. Hell yeah. Do people close to you know about your work in sex work?
Yes, many of my friends know what I do. That's very important to me. Um, I also am very upfront about it when I'm starting to date someone because I don't want to waste my time with someone who's going to have a problem with that.
Yeah.
And I recently told my family, sort of in the middle of all the COVID stuff. It began to be very difficult to continue to keep it from them.
Awesome. How was
And
that? How was that being able to tell your parents or like tell your family?
it was awesome to be able to tell them, and I knew they weren't going to like disown me because that's not their style. They definitely didn't have a lot to say, which is like that's how I know that they're disapproving, is when they just don't say
Yeah.
anything.
But sometimes that's good. It's
um
like it's like, oh, you didn't say anything. I told you, and then you didn't say anything. Cool.
yeah, I think also, I mean, they raised me so they know that like if they don't have anything good to say, they shouldn't say it because I'm just going to continue to do what I'm doing anyway.
Yeah.
And sometimes if you tell me I can't do it, I'm just going to do it harder. So I think they've learned that like not that they can't disagree with me. We definitely have really awesome conversations, but I think they also learned like they just my impression was that they needed to sit with it. My dad is my dad's really into tech and audio and things like that, and so he knows about the podcast and probably is listening to it as we speak. Like I recently was just kind of like, "Hey, will you give it a listen and like let me know what you think?" And so
That's
that's a
awesome.
really it's really yeah, like I'm kind of tearing up as I talk about it because it's like I not everybody's that lucky to have that kind of a connection with their parents.
Nah, definitely not. Like that's yeah. It's like it's. I feel like that has to feel so freeing to like have them. You tell them what's up, they accept it, and then move forward. Like that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm definitely lucky. They're both my mom and my dad are really cool people.
Hell yeah. How important is having somebody that you're able to talk to about work?
Oh my god, so important. This is like another reason I'm passionate about community and people. Um is cuz it's I wouldn't be where I am. I'd probably still be like so much more paranoid than I am now. Um if I didn't have other sex workers to talk to or friends that I could just like lean on for a minute. I'm still learning how to lean on people like emotionally, but um in learning how to do it, I've learned that it's so imperative to my mental health.
Yeah. Just like having some, especially I feel like just during this time, especially to where there's a lot less contact with somebody or with just like human contact with people, just like having somebody that you can talk to is, yeah, I feel like it's so vital to everything.
Oh, I agree. I mean, I think it makes well, not to bring it back to the podcast every time, but like it makes the podcast interviews that I do so cool and intense because we just get to go in about our work, which I don't think a lot of sex workers get to do very often.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I cherish that. And I have friends like in doing the activist work in this area that I do, I have a lot of sex worker friends that we get to have those conversations and can refer to each other like, "Hey, I just had this happen. What would you do in this circumstance?" It's like any other job where you talk to a colleague about stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just like really hard for sex workers to find colleagues that we trust. Yeah.
Tell me about your podcast. Let's talk about that.
Hey yo, I'm so excited about my podcast. It's been over a year in the making. I was just we were talking with the work I do with Answer, a network of sex workers to excite revolution, and we'd been talking about what we want to see, just like dreaming big. And a few of us had talked about sex worker media outlets. Like we should have a zine or we should have like written a blog or just to be able to generate sex worker created content and share our stories. And the whole idea was to humanize sex workers so that people could see us as people and our job as just a job and to see how silly it is that it's criminalized. And yeah, and so that was kind of the impetus, and I was just like, "Oh, a podcast is a great idea." And then I was like looking for a host, found a host, and then that fell apart, and eventually I was just kind of like, I just want this to happen, and we're just gonna do it, and I'll host it, and I'll try to be as ethical and conscious as possible.
That's dope. I feel like I respect anybody that fucking puts the effort into like put out a podcast because I just know what goes into it, and it's dope. Your podcast is great. Listeners, go check out the podcast, The Sex Worker's Guide to the Galaxy. What's your Twitter?
The Twitter is at Sexy Galaxy Pod. And
Fo-
then we're also on Patreon at patreon.com/sexygalaxypod.
Heck yeah. How has it been? So you said year in the making. How is it? I guess the planning going into it. How is that like the? Because everybody, I feel like, especially even with this podcast, it's like you have an idea in your head and you're like, hey, I think I could do this thing, but you haven't done it yet. And then just seeing it all the way to fruition and then seeing you just starting something. How has that been? I feel like it was for me, it's like been awesome. How has that been just having an idea and then like putting in the works and actually make it happen?
It has been so cool. Aside from like the personal development part of like witnessing myself getting in my own way and then like moving past that, I think that's been a whole thing. But also reaching out to people who know more about podcasting than I do, and asking questions and learning how much work goes into a pod. I had no idea. I had no idea. It's so much work. There's so much advanced planning and like figuring out how to launch and just interview prep, like all of the things I did not know. And I love it. I've fallen in love with the art of podcasting. It's really fun.
It's fun. I love it. And it's just like having a conversation like with somebody. It's great.
Yeah, and I love I love that sex workers are trusting me with their story, right? And then I get to edit it and make us both sound good and then like make sure they like it and then I send it out into the world and I've gotten nothing but positive feedback, so I'm grateful for that. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's just I'm like beaming over here in my closet. I'm really excited about the whole thing.
hell yeah. Because it's such like I feel like it's such like a powerful thing to where it's like I'm having a conversation with somebody they may never have shared the story with anybody else, and like wanting it to go well so bad, and like just like making sure like this I want this to be so good because they're putting themselves out there and being vulnerable and sharing their story with essentially the entire world, and
Yeah.
trusting you to like put that out or like share that story. I feel like is such an amazing thing. I'm like fucking anybody who comes on that, I'm like thank you so much. I fucking truly appreciate that you like trust me to talk to me on this podcast.
Yeah, it's flattering as hell. It's really a gift.
Yeah. What do you have a favorite part of doing the podcast so far? You have like a favorite moment?
My favorite part is certainly the interviews. I love talking to people. Um, yeah, and there's some interviews that I haven't posted yet that are just we go so deep and it's really astounding to me that people are willing to go there and it's really incredible. I think I don't know my favorite moment is meeting people I've never met before and then getting to know them. I
Yeah.
love getting to know people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you just meet people from all over, and then like they're still like so connected by the same, not same story, but it's like similar stories within the same realm, and it's like people from all over the world having this shared experience. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's great. How
It's
was
so
yeah?
good.
Tell me a little bit. You mentioned it before. Answer Detroit. Tell me a little bit about
Yeah.
Answer Detroit.
Yeah, so Answer Detroit has been we formed about 2 years ago. Again, Answer stands for a network of sex workers to excite revolution. So it's a collective of sex workers based in Detroit who are fighting to destigmatize and are fighting for decrim in Detroit and beyond. Um, and we've done a lot of initiatives. Our biggest project, honestly, in the last year was our mutual aid fund that really took off during COVID. We kind of ramped up our efforts and raised over $30,000 and distributed every dollar to sex workers in Detroit, and specifically, um, we took priority for Black, trans, and street-based sex workers.
That is amazing.
So
30,000. That's so much money. That's incredible.
it was it was remarkable. People we ended up on this website for people to donate their stimulus check to nonprofits that were redistributing money to people who needed it. And I think that really helped us to raise that money. And it was just like such a humbling seeing people show up for sex workers in that way. $30,000
That is
was just like,
wow.
yeah.
Do you know if the mutual aid is still open? Like, can people still donate to it?
We started a new GoFundMe, so it's for our general operations and mutual aid fund. And we're currently trying to redesign our mutual aid fund into something that's more sustainable for us to manage because our mutual aid fund got to be too big for all of us um, to work on. It was just like a lot all at once, and then we also like that initial influx of money slowed down, so
Yeah.
we didn't have as much money to be able to fulfill all of the requests that we were getting.
Okay.
So we're redesigning some things for 2021. But yeah, we do have a GoFundMe and you can find it. I believe it's listed. Answer has a Twitter. So the Twitter is at Answer Detroit. We also have an Instagram at We Are Answer Detroit. And in our link tree, you can find our GoFundMe link.
Okay, hell yeah. I'll plug it in the show notes so anybody listen to this, hey, go to the GoFundMe, Answer Detroit, donate some money. That would be amazing.
Support sex workers.
Do that shit.
Yeah. Also, 50% of the proceeds from my Patreon for the podcast go to Answer Detroit.
Hell yeah.
So that is a way you can support both the podcast and Answer Detroit if you like.
Awesome. Fuck yeah. Listeners, you heard
Mhm.
Patreon, GoFundMe, do that. Do that. Sign up right now. How has fucking, in March or April of last, or like I guess maybe February of last year, where little pandemics happening, how has like this whole time been for you?
Oh yeah, that thing.
The old pandemic, who would have thought it?
It's wow, the pandemic. It's been a lot. I mean, I stopped working for a while. I ended up doing some graphic design. I wasn't sure, none of us were sure if it was safe to see people, and I think I mean, I haven't seen my family in over a year because of it, which has been really hard. It's been a tough one. I really miss seeing them.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm from Minnesota, so they're still there. Um,
Can I ask you a question about Minnesota real quick?
yeah, please.
How close were you to a lake?
Oh, there are so many lakes in Minnesota. We
Yeah.
really are the land of a thousand lakes. I was so close to a lake. I mean, I had a pond in my neighborhood that I often did like little environmental cleanups as a young child, because that's me. And
I mean,
then I would
yeah. I'm like
hello, I
that
am a
makes
hip.
sense. You're activist
Yeah,
as a
that's
child cleaning up
how
lakes.
I like legit organized the kids in the neighborhood to like go clean up the neighborhood park and pond. Um, anyway, that's an aside. But
Yeah, I know,
I
right?
in high school I would bike like, oh man, I think I'd bike like 20 minutes and I was at a lake, and I would just like strip off all my clothes and like tuck myself behind some trees and do like some sunbathing and swimming, and I miss it.
The old lakes. I always like anybody. Anytime I talk to anybody from Minnesota, I gotta find out about the lakes because y'all got like 10,000, and I'm like, what's up with all them lakes? But that's dope though. Oh yeah.
Yeah, you gotta come visit. I mean, not only do we have lakes, but it's also the land of Prince, and the music scene's incredible. Yeah, Detroit, or not Detroit, but I mean Detroit's where it's at, but also the Twin Cities.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of sex workers like turned to online work during the pandemic. Have you turned to online work at all?
I have. I now have an OnlyFans.
Oh boy, how do you like it?
um, oh man, it's different. It's hard to connect with people. I enjoy it, but I also was like never the taking of selfies has been a journey for me. I'm like not it's not my favorite thing, and so I've had to learn. I've had to figure out ways to make it my own. So I do a lot of like reading naked, and I've done some like science experiments naked, and um
Oh my god.
yeah, I get weird with it because I just don't know what else to do.
See, that is dope. Have you done the baking soda and it's like baking soda vinegar? Is he making volcano
Baking
or
soda
whatever?
vinegar volcano. I should do that one.
To-
But I should make the volcano shaped like a penis,
oh my god. Yes.
because I'm also just a 14-year-old boy at heart.
Yeah. It's like if Bill Nye made an OnlyFans.
Well, that's my goal. I'm like, I want to be, what is it, Bill Nye, and then Mythbusters. I would love to just be a mashup of Bill Nye and Mythbusters.
That would be great. We gotta people subscribe. What's your OnlyFans? What's your OnlyFans
I am at Parker_Westwood.
sweet. Listeners,
Mhm.
onlyfans.com/Parker_Westwood. Give her a follow.
I need more people who actually enjoy the science experiment part. So come follow me so I can do more of those.
You're the first person I've heard that's doing the science experiment. So I feel like that is a like there's definitely a demographic out there that wants OnlyFans plus science. And we need to find
Yeah, I break up in geodes. It's a great time. I'll do more of them for y'all.
fuck. So, a recent thing in the news, I saw the Washtenaw County prosecutor is no longer prosecuting consensual sex work. I know that's like basically like a county over from Detroit. How do you feel about that being a sex worker in that area?
Yeah, that was really exciting news. Like it doesn't change the law, right? Like we're still technically criminalized, but to have a prosecutor say that they will not, well, first of all, differentiate between consensual sex work and trafficking. That's huge. But to say that they're not going to prosecute consensual sex work is just, it's a big deal. And in the statement, they stated that this was to make it safer for sex workers. So that alone just like is really exciting to see.
That's great that like somebody like a prosecutor, somebody just like understands that hey, there's a difference between consensual sex work and trafficking and the harmful effects of criminalization on consensual sex work that criminalization has on consensual sex work. Knowing the facts and implementing that policy seems like it's a fucking great thing.
I feel like it's important to talk about the fact that just because this prosecutor isn't going to be prosecuting consensual sex work doesn't mean people aren't going to be getting arrested for consensual sex work. It just means that they won't have a case, they won't have a criminal record around it. But what this doesn't change is like for people who are street workers, they can still get hassled and arrested. And as a white indoor like sex worker online, like I'm comforted by knowing that consensual sex work isn't prosecuted, but it also like it still changes, it's still criminalized, and that changes people who do street sex work, which are more often than not, as a white person, I feel like it's like very important to draw this distinction. Like most street workers are black and trans women, and like that we need to do better. We need to do better. So
Yeah.
decriminalization is still very important to fight for.
But yeah, like you said, I think it's just a step in the right direction, and hopefully, other people see this policy, see the effect that it has on the sex work community, and start to implement it like statewide, nationwide, or whatever it may be. But people just see this example and the effect that it has, and decide to make that same change as well. That'd be great news.
Yeah, like if you don't criminalize us and give us the ability to come forward about things we see and like to report unsafe clients and any sex trafficking we see, which right now it's like we don't feel safe coming forward with stuff like that because we could be penalized.
That's I feel like that's one of the like the like worst effects of this whole like criminalization of sex work is like if something happens to you in the course of you just doing your job, you cannot go to the police because of like fear of prosecution or it's so ridiculous that somebody commits a crime against you and you're not able to go to anybody about it just because of fear of your job.
Oh yeah, I mean like this gets me on a whole rant about labor rights, right? Like it's if we this is why the term sex work is so important to me and I identify as a sex worker is because this is a job and it needs to be seen as a job so that we can have labor rights. We deserve to have a safe working environment and deserve to be able to report dangerous clients and things like that. So, yeah, that's it's huge.
Yeah. That's hopefully, yeah, hopefully the change comes and more people see this good example and say, hey, let's try this thing here. Maybe it'll have a positive effect.
Yeah, get it Washtenaw County. Proud of
Hell
you.
yeah. How has sex work helped in any other aspects of your life?
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah. I mean, I think it's done wonders for my self-confidence or at least my self-awareness. Like I said earlier with boundaries, like it has helped me to become more clear about my boundaries and even in some ways I would say like even my desires. Like I've gotten to explore things with people that I don't know that I would have explored on my own. maybe I would have, but it definitely gave me the outlet to do so. And I've found like things I like and things I don't like, and I'm more able to articulate that. I also, it puts me in this position where like I think in normal relationships, it's nerve-wracking to have certain to be the one to like be forward and have conversations. Like what is it that you like? Everyone's intimidated to do that. Or like what do you want me to call certain parts of your body? And I'm just so more apt to do that.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't bother me. I don't get in my head about it.
I feel like the more open you're able to like be about sex or talk about sex, it just makes the conversation less and less over time because you're like, I do this all. I talk about sex like it's not a thing, you know. We're just talking about
Yeah.
sex.
Yeah, and I love talking about sex. It's my favorite topic.
People been doing that shit since forever. That's why we're here right now.
Yeah, doing that shit since forever, and yet people still come up with new stuff, and I'm just flabbergasted sometimes. It's really quite astounding.
I feel like if cavemen had Instagram, we definitely know some wild shit. You know, they probably were still doing wild shit back in the day.
We gotta go back and look at those cave paintings.
Yeah. There was definitely way more hair. They were doing some hairy shit we don't even know about because they were just, you know.
Yeah, they definitely had a bush pink or something.
Have your views on sex or sexuality changed since starting sex work at all?
No, I when I was in college, I'll tell this as an example. I've always been like very anti-censorship and like pro-sex, and I've been into kink for a long time, so like down to explore, and I think people should. I think it's important. I think we should talk about it more. And when I went to college, one of my bigger projects that I did was a porn presentation,
Nice.
and everyone pay for your porn. It's very important. I I showed 12 different clips of 10 different kinds of porn. I had to card people as they came in to make sure they were old enough to view this porn that I was showing. And then we just like sociologically broke it down. And it was awesome. There were some like tense, uncomfortable moments because there were some uncomfortable moments in some of the porn, but um, it was really great. And I feel like I feel like the work that I'm doing now is like the work I've been heading towards my entire life. I feel very at home.
Hell yeah. Has how you view yourself changed at all since starting sex work?
Ooh, yes. I would say yes. I I'm actually getting more comfortable seeing myself as kind of a badass. Like I think when I first started sex work, I didn't have a very high self-esteem. Um and I don't yeah, I think I mean it's been a journey outside of sex work as well. But sex work has allowed me to practice like the fake it till you make it thing where
Oh
like I
yeah.
show up and I present myself as hot shit, or like not hot shit necessarily, but like I feel like I'm attractive,
Yeah.
and eventually I believe it. I think it's helped with that in a way. It's given me a lot of practice in believing that I am attractive.
Well, I mean, you get like evidence of it, you know, to where it's like, hey, I'm feeling like you come out and you're like confident, you're feeling yourself, and then people see you and they respond to that like, oh, she is hot shit, she is awesome, she is like beautiful or whatever. Then like I feel like you feel that shit.
It's helpful, but I think it's fleeting, like
Yeah.
other people's validation. And this is why, like, when we get on social media and get those like initial serotonin hits of people validating us, and then we walk away from it and we like feel empty still,
Yeah.
it's very much that where like, yeah, the validation is nice and the affirmations are nice, but really what's shifted is that I've started to believe it myself and like see myself as lovable and like cool. Like I see
Yeah.
myself as someone I want to spend time with.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What do you find to be your favorite, least favorite part of sex work?
I hate screening. I hate it so much. It's very important. It is super duper duper important, and I encourage everyone to screen, but it's frustrating as all hell because some people will like give you only some of the information, and it's like it would be one thing if people just provided all of the information all at once and then I could just like do the thing and then we could book the date. But yeah, I'm someone who I don't have an assistant, and so I like do everything myself. And yeah, I think screening is my least favorite part. I'm just kind of like, you're not paying me for this
Yeah.
and it's driving me nuts. But my favorite part is, I think, similar to what we've talked about, but like getting to open up with people and like witness them be vulnerable with me and really connect. Coming together is like one of my favorite moments. And then yeah, just like the afterglow. And then also like going on artistic dates where we get to like create together feels oddly similar. Maybe not in the same euphoric kind of way that like having an orgasm together does, but yeah, creating things together is just like a really fun connection that I love to have with people.
Fuck yeah. That's dope. Fuck yeah.
Mhm.
How long do you see yourself in sex work?
That's a fun question. I love thinking about this cuz I don't know. No one can really know, right? But I I like to think that I would have at least a handful of clients that I'll see into my old age.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, like I don't think it's going to be my primary source of income forever. But I do really enjoy the connection, and I feel like as I get older, I would absolutely love to have like a handful of clients that I still see.
Fuck yeah. Where do you see yourself in like 5 years? Do you have a 5 year plan? Is it? I've never made one before.
Ooh, me either, but I want to so bad. Every time I sit down to do it, I just get like so overwhelmed because like the last like if you asked me 5 years ago where I would be, I would not have told you where that I would be where I am now, right?
Yeah.
Especially because I started sex work like 2.5 years ago. So there was no way I could have projected that I'd be where I am now. I I mean, I hope I'm still doing the podcast because I fucking love it. I also see myself continuing to do sex work. I'm gonna say this. I hope to have written a book. Um,
Fuck yeah. You just put it out there.
um,
Fuck. Hell yeah.
I'm just it's it's a ballsy thing to put it out there, but I'm gonna do it.
Dope.
um, yeah, and then I don't know, like tons of travel in there somewhere. But yeah, I don't know exactly where I would be in 5 years, but I think those are some manageable goals, I
that,
think.
if you write the book, we're promoting it all on the podcast. I'm buying the book.
Hell yeah,
I'm buying the book.
thank you. Yes.
Do you have a thing like I always ask people like what would you do if you could do anything? Money's not an object. Is there a thing you would do? I guess maybe it's job wise or like however you envision that question. But do you have a thing you could do if you could do anything?
Ooh, yeah. Oh my goodness. That it's all I feel like I've faced this question before, and I'm a Libra and decisions are hard, and like so many options is really hard for me. But I'll do my best. I It would have to involve travel. It would have to involve travel and like learning languages. I really love learning languages. Before I became a sex worker, I was in school for to be a sign language interpreter,
Oh, nice.
and it's oh my gosh, like it is one of the coolest languages I've ever learned. And yeah, I still really want to utilize that skill more, but it just made me want to learn more languages because every country has its own sign language.
Oh,
It's
wow.
banana. Yeah. So, yeah, I feel like I would just like travel and learn different languages and yeah, maybe study linguistics because I can't stop studying things.
Fuck yeah. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah,
Cuz if
that or become a soil mycologist because I love mushrooms. So,
a soil what?
mycologist, like It's like with mushrooms, micro remediation was like my jam. This is me getting really nerdy now, and
Nice.
I will not apologize. Yeah, so like you can pull toxins out of soil with mushrooms, and I think that that is the most magical thing. So,
Wow, that's incredible.
yeah, yeah,
I'm
it's
I'm about
cool.
to I'm about to Google this. Hell yeah.
Highly recommend it.
Are you a fan of stand up comedy at all?
I need it in my life just because like there are some days I just need a good laugh.
Do you have a favorite comic at all? You have a favorite comedian?
I think yeah, yes. This was a hard one for I was just like who would be my favorite? It's one of those moments where someone asks you like who's your favorite band and you're like I've never listened to music.
Yeah, that happens to me every time.
Yeah. I grew up listening to like I loved Whoopi Goldberg and Robin Williams. They were my two favorites, and I pretty much stand by that. I love them both. And when Robin Williams passed, it was like it shook me to get my shit together.
Yeah,
Um,
that was so sad.
ugh, yeah. I think about it often just because he was like I think on first on my bucket list, number one was meet Robin Williams. So,
Damn.
um, yeah, I know. And but yeah, so Robin Williams, Whoopi Goldberg, and then I love Tig Notaro. Like I
Yeah.
just love the like dry delivery is just so impressive to me.
Her joke about laughing after you laugh, like where you're like the like exhale, where you're like ah, where you're like reminiscing about the laugh that you just had a few seconds. Oh, it's so funny.
That and like her impressions bit is just gold.
Yeah.
It's just so good.
Tig's funny. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Before we get out of here, did you get a story you want to leave us on?
I mean, okay. I think I'll tell this one and we can you can choose to use it or not. But um yes. So the remember the first day of stripping I was telling you about,
Okay.
where they like make me go up first. My first day of stripping was kind of a formative day for me because I went up and I did the thing, having never seen a stripper before except for on TV when I watched Striptease that one time, and I I start mingling with like the people who are at the bar, and there's this older gentleman, not a gentleman, just a dude, and he at one point just like whips out his dick.
Oh God.
And I'm 19 years old. There's no bouncer. I don't quite know what to do in this circumstance. It is my first day, my trial day, in fact. And he whips out his dick and I just look at him and I'm like, "You need to put that away." And and he was just like, "Why? You get to like show everything here." And I was just like, "Yeah, cuz people want to see it, but you need to put that away or I'm going to have you kicked out." And it was I was shaking as I said it, and it was just like me as this like 19-year-old, just kind of standing up for myself, and yeah, it was a really empowering and scary moment.
I feel like that. Yeah, that had to be like just like, oh, what the fuck, dude? Like,
It was totally what the fuck, and I was just in from that moment on, I became the like house bouncer because we didn't have one. So, and I was also like I'm pretty muscular. And I always kind of have been. I've lucked out in that sense. So I just became anytime the girls were having a problem, they'd like come tell me. So I became this like
hell yeah.
stripper bouncer.
That's dope. Another
Yeah.
dick. Get Parker. Where's this motherfucker? Get him out of here.
Get them out. You do not want those heels up your ass, I will tell you that
Yeah.
much. I mean, unless you do, and then I'm still your girl, so that's good.
Yeah. I feel that's such a fucking weird answer too. Like to where it's like, oh, you get to be naked. Why can't I be? Like, bro, you don't work here, dude. What the fuck? What do you?
Yeah,
What world
like
do you
you're
live
not
in, bro?
no. Yeah, this is not your moment,
N-
really,
n-
is what it is.
Not at all. Well, Parker,
Mhm.
I appreciate you coming on the podcast. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, this has been really great. Thank you so much for having me.
Fuck yeah. Let's plug some social media before we get out of here. Where can the people find you? Where can they find the podcast? What are some links?
We got some links. So you can find me at parkerwestwood.com or on Twitter at Parker_Westwood or Instagram at Parker.Westwood, and then on OnlyFans at Parker_Westwood. And then you can find the podcast at Sexy Galaxy Pod on Twitter and on Patreon, patreon.com/Sexy Galaxy Pod. And then don't forget Answer. We also have a website, answerdetroit.org, or on Twitter at answerdetroit. I think that's it. I'm winded.
That was a lot. Fuck yeah. I'm going to plug all of those in the show notes, in the Libsyn page, and then I'll also have that GoFundMe so people can donate as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure.
Heck yeah, Parker, I really appreciate it. Fuck yeah. Listeners, we will be back later.
Well, there you have it, folks. That is the interview for a full service podcast with Tank Smith. Please go check out his podcast. There's so many episodes at this point, and some really incredible people on that show as well. And it was it's really fun listening to that interview back because I get to experience myself from the outside and just get to see my double air sign wildness come out with all of the way my brain works is crazy sometimes, in the best way. I love myself. Anyway, I think y'all are amazing. I really appreciate you listening to the show. We already covered all the links in my episode with Tank, so let's just leave it there. And here's a little tidbit for you. Did you know if two pieces of the same kind of metal touch in space, they will permanently bond? It's a phenomenon known as cold welding, and I just think that's really fucking romantic. Nanu nanu, motherfuckers. And yes, that's a Robin Williams tribute. Now you know.